Catherine Sasser, and today I'm going to show you how to make, start to finish, one of my favorite summer dishes. It's called shrimp and avocado dip. It's kind of part ceviche, but there's no raw shrimp, part like shrimp cocktail. It's cold, it's creamy, it's zingy, it's amazing. So I'm going to start by building the sauce in the bottom of the bowl that we're going to be mixing this whole thing in, and I'm starting with half a cup of ketchup. And I have to tell you, every time I go to make this recipe, I stumble over the fact that it's based on ketchup, and that almost makes me want to not make it, except that it's so good. I just want to say, I know it's weird to start with ketchup. Yes, ketchup, but it's worth it. So it's half a cup of ketchup and then a quarter cup of freshly squeezed lime juice. You need to either use real limes or you need to purchase lime juice that you know was squeezed from actual limes and not the weird stuff that sits on the counter. And so I'm gonna blend these two things together. The lime gives a nice acidic punch to the whole thing, and it helps keep our avocados from browning. Okay, so once that's kind of, oh my gosh, that smells so good. Once that's combined, I'm gonna add a tablespoon of Tabasco and 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. This is totally like up to your taste on the heat. Tabasco doesn't come out very fast, so I'm gonna shake for a while. But if you're concerned about the heat level, you could definitely add less and then add more to taste. The recipe is written for a tablespoon. It just seems like the right amount of heat. It's not, I would not describe this as overwhelmingly spicy. It's just the right amount of kick. So it's 1 tablespoon of Tabasco and then 2 tablespoons of olive oil, which almost makes this a little bit like a vinaigrette. We've got all the components of a salad dressing, you know, plus ketchup, which is maybe strange, but it works. Okay, so olive oil, lime juice, Tabasco, ketchup, mixed in the bottom of the bowl. I'm mixing the sauce first in the bowl that I'm gonna make the whole shrimp dip in, so that I can just add everything to this and then stir it at the end. So sauce is made. I'm gonna set this aside, and now we're gonna chop our ingredients. I'm gonna start with a cucumber. This is called a seedless cucumber, sometimes referred to as an English cucumber. It has a very thin skin and they come wrapped in plastic. You don't have to peel seedless English cucumbers, whatever you call them. The skin is not very waxy. It's thin, it's great, but you only need half of a cucumber for this recipe. So what I'm gonna do is just slice it down the center. One thing, this is kind of optional, but one thing I like to do is to take a spoon and sort of scrape out the watery seeds, not because you can't eat them. You can totally eat these seeds. And if I were putting this cucumber in a salad or almost anything else, I would keep the seeds. The reason I'm taking them out here is because they are the component of the cucumber that holds the most water. And as cucumber sits in the sauce, it's gonna start releasing that water, and that can end up with a little bit of a watery dip, and I don't want that. So again, I'm not removing these because the seeds are bad. I'm just trying to remove a little bit of any potential sogginess that might go into our dip. Now, what's important to remember in everything that we're gonna chop is that we want these pieces to be the size that we could fit on a chip. We want it to be like salsa sized. So I'm gonna cut this into long spears like this and then turn them and cut across. And that's kind of the size that we're looking for. Kind of that chunky, small to medium dice. And I'm going to go directly into our bowl. So everything will get directly put into the bowl, then we'll mix it at the end. So let me do that again on, whoops, piece number 2. So again, long spears. And then short little squares. And that's our cucumber. The next ingredient are green onions. Green onions are sometimes called scallions, sometimes wrongly called chives. Green onions and chives are two different things. Chive is an herb. Green onion is an allium. That's the fancy word for things that are in the onion family. So it's close to like an onion or a leek or a garlic, whereas chive is more like an herb, like basil or dill or parsley. Similar flavors, but you get the idea. So when I chop green onions, I like to take off, there's usually, you know, kind of a papery layer that I'm really not interested in messing around with. It's usually attached to the outermost leaf and it peels off quite nicely unless you're trying to do it on camera, and then it's kind of tricky. And so there's usually one that I can like pull off and then take the remaining like that. Once I have them like this, the entire thing is edible, but you know, you can see that sometimes the ends are they look a little less than ideal, so I cut those off. And then again, because I want small, bite-sized, not overwhelming chunks, what I'm gonna do is take the tip of my knife and split this down the middle on all three, and then line them up and use my knife to cut them across. I'm going to use the entire length of the green onion. Sometimes a recipe will say just use the white and light green parts, or sometimes you'll see a recipe that says just to use the dark green ends. We're gonna use the whole green onion. How you chop a green onion. Okay, all this goes in. So you have the cool, crunchy cucumber. You have the mildly heated green onion that is not overpowering like a regular onion would be. The next ingredient is an avocado. You want to make sure your avocado is ripe. There's no way to speed up the process of ripening an avocado, so just wait until it's nice and ripe. Split it down the middle, open it up. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to show you one thing that you can do is you can cube the avocado inside the skin like this, and then I'm going to use that same spoon, just lift it out, kind of scrape it with a spoon, and the cubes go directly in. And then there are two ways to take the pit out. You can hack the pit with your sharp knife and turn it. I do that sometimes. I'm gonna show you the non-hacking way. I just kind of use my spoon to gently nudge around it. One time when I was doing the knife hack trick, I hacked into the fleshy part of my palm, and I've never quite gotten over it. I always hesitate. So sometimes I just prefer to use the spoon so I don't have a post-traumatic event while making avocado. Okay, the whole avocado goes in. The only true way to keep avocado from turning brown is to cover it in some sort of citrus juice like lemon or lime, or I guess orange. That would be weird. That's the only trick. Everything else that you hear, it doesn't work. The pit, none of that. So the lime juice in our sauce is what's gonna keep the avocado green. Okay, last ingredient before we get to the shrimp is cilantro. You love it or you hate it, and if you hate it, I can't make you love it. If you don't like cilantro, leave it out. If you love cilantro, you're gonna love this dip. I am not a pick the leaves off the cilantro person. I don't have time for that. I am a do your best to kind of like get most of it off of the bunch, and if there are any huge stems, I might remove those. But true confessions, I just chop up the stems with the cilantro. The whole herb is edible, and I do not want to take a lot of time picking out stems when it's just gonna be fine. So give it a few passes with your knife. Again, we don't want it to be like a salad, so we don't want huge leaves. We want it to be pretty chopped up. And then add it to the bowl. Yum. And at this point, I would want to tell you that while the recipe has amounts and quantities and guidelines, you can 100% make this to your taste. If you don't like cilantro, but you love cucumber, go for it. You can add more cucumber, you can add less cilantro, you can mess with the quantities. I would encourage you to make it as written once and then decide what you like. Okay, so all our vegetables are in the sauce. Now it's time to talk about the shrimp. The recipe calls for 1 pound of cooked shrimp. What I have here, besides cilantro hands, what I have here is 2 pounds. You're looking at 2 pounds of shrimp. You have choices when it comes to the shrimp. I bought frozen, peeled, and deveined shrimp, thawed them, roasted them in the oven with olive oil, salt, and pepper, and now I'm gonna chop them up into cubes roughly the size as our cucumber. You could buy already cooked shrimp. They also make teeny tiny little salad shrimp. You can do whatever you like. If you want to peel and devein your own shrimp, have at it. But what I'm gonna do is use roughly half of this. So I'm gonna take a little bit, put it on my board in a single layer with a sharp knife, and I'm just gonna chop this up until the pieces look similar to the size of the cucumber chunks. That's kind of ideal. This does not mean that you have to use this size shrimp. You can use bigger shrimp. It will just take more chopping. You can use smaller shrimp. It will take less chopping. Or like I said, you can use the tiny, almost miniature baby shrimp and you don't have to chop them at all. I will say that if you choose to cook your own shrimp, I would highly advise you against boiling them and try the roasting. I think that's gonna be all we need. When you boil shrimp, all the amazing flavor of the shrimp goes into the water, which you then throw down the sink and never see again. But when you roast shrimp in the oven, again, probably over like 375 to 400 degrees with a little bit of olive oil and a sprinkling of salt and pepper, just like when you roast a vegetable or anything else, the flavor concentrates and the resulting shrimp is so much more juicy and tender and full of flavor. It doesn't have that waterlogged, washed out flavor that boiled shrimp can sometimes have. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. And again, I cooked twice as much shrimp as the recipe calls for, so I think just by eyeballing it, we're probably pretty close. All right, now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stir all this together, and I love the colors of this dish. You have like the 2 shades of green, the beautiful pink shrimp. The sauce is kind of this sunset red color. It all gets mixed together and it's amazing on tortilla chips. This is like the perfect cold dinner with a glass full of something bubbly or sparkly. My kids love this. My husband loves this. It's the perfect, it just has so many perfect places. It's great for a party, great for a snack, great for a healthy lunch. And this is it. You can let it sit and marinate for a while, or you can eat it right out of the bowl and just go. I would say you don't want to make this more than a day in advance because it just sort of starts to deteriorate. The avocado, the shrimp, the lime really kind of starts to eat away at that. So within 24 hours, you want to eat it or share it or not share it, whatever you like. But that's how you make shrimp and avocado dip. The recipe can be found wherever you're watching this video. Thanks for joining me.